Welcome back to another explanation video. Today we're not talking about electronics, nor radio, nor optics, or anything like that, but we are talking about history. In particular, we're going to be talking about medicinal history, and, well, pharmaceutical to be exact. This book is from 1933. It's a great resource if you ignore the deadly stuff. Anyway, we're going to be talking about, in particular, the apothecary's measurement system, weights and volumes. 1971, let me set the stage. 1971, we have humans on the moon, we have nuclear reactors functioning across the planet, we've mastered the natural world, we have computers, and it is the last year in which pharmacies in the United States are still writing their prescriptions in Latin and using traditional measurement units. I'll say that again, 1971. I bet a lot of you were alive then and still remember that year. Kind of strange, but we've moved on from there since then. But let's actually explain what I mean by these traditional units. This is most easily explained by my trademark China marker. So let's get started. I'll start with, let's try weights. Let's start with weights. Weight. Okay. My American viewers are ostensibly familiar with the ounce and the pound. That's how we measure mass right here in the United States. And the United States customary system uses what's called the avoirdupois pound and the avoirdupois ounce. My viewers here are smart, and you'll know that there are two, there's another system. It's called the Troy system. And the reason why I say you're smart is because you've encountered gold and silver before. You know that those are not measured in standard ounces. They're measured in Troy ounces. Troy ounces, they come from a different system of measurement than the avoirdupois, hence the name, out of a city in France called Troyes. The francophones are now yelling at their screens saying I pronounced it wrong, but whatever. But anyway, the Troy ounce is slightly different than the avoirdupois ounce. It's slightly heavier. The Troy pound is slightly lighter than the avoirdupois pound. Troy ounces are not really used much anymore besides precious metals. Avoirdupois ounces are far more common. If you are in the United States and you buy one of these cheapo, junky digital balances, if it's in ounce mode, it's going to be measuring in avoirdupois ounces. These are terrible. They have terrible accuracy, but if you don't need that accuracy or precision, these are good for their price. I digress anyway. Let's start with some units. What are our base units of the apothecary system in terms of weight? Well, our first is going to be the pound. LB stands for libra, which means pound in Latin, and it has this bar through it indicating that this is a Troy pound, not an avoirdupois pound. Remember, an avoirdupois pound is just LB with a dot after it. The dot's optional here, but if we see that bar through it, that's an apothecary's pound. Pounds are subdivided into ounces. It looks like a 3, but it has 2 stories on the top. That's that weird symbol. Ounces are subdivided into drams, which looks like a 3, but it's kind of curly on the end. Those of you that are familiar with the extinct letter yar in the English language, it's that character. Again, it looks like a 3. It's not a 3. If you see it printed, there's clearly a difference. Drams are further divided into scruples. Fun to say, scruple. Russian speakers in the audience will recognize that that is one of their letters in their alphabet. It's kind of difficult to draw for English speakers, but anyway. Scruples are further subdivided finally into grains. So pounds into ounces, into drams, into scruples, into grains. In Latin, pay attention if you need the Latin translations, we have libra, uncia, drachma, scrupulum, granum. I'll say that again. Libra, uncia, drachma, scrupulum, granum. Those are all the singular. So how are these actually related to each other? We'll start with 1 pound. 1 pound is subdivided into 12 ounces. Now, the Americans are screaming at their screens, "No, you moron, there are 16 ounces in my pound." And yes, there are 16 ounces in your pound. But this is not your pound. Remember, this is the Troy pound. This is the apothecary's pound. There are 12 Troy ounces in 1 Troy pound, which is why, because avoirdupois and Troy ounces both use the same grain, that's why the Troy ounce is heavier, but the Troy pound is lighter. Anyway, 1 ounce is divided into 8 drams. That's a very useful conversion to know. 8 drams into 1 ounce. 1 dram is subdivided into 3 scruples. And then 1 scruple is subdivided finally into 20 grains. 1 pound is 12 ounces, 1 ounce is 8 drams, 1 dram is 3 scruples, 1 scruple is 20 grains. I'm going to fill these out. Hopefully I haven't lost you. 8 times 12, that's 96 drams in a pound. And then we have 288 scruples in a pound, which is finally 5,760, I think. Yes, 5,760 grains in a pound. Know that number. That's a very useful number to have. Likewise, 8 times 3, that's 24. Scruples are in an ounce, which equals 480 grains. Again, useful number to know. And then finally, 60 grains are in a dram. Typically, in the 20th century, when we see stuff like this, you're not really ever going to encounter the scruple. You're not going to encounter the pound either, just ounces, drams, and grains. Since the grain is the most granular, no pun intended, you are typically going to see most of your stuff in grains. That's why it's very useful to know all these grain conversions, particularly that 20 grains is 1 scruple and that 60 grains is 1 dram. These are very useful numbers. Also know that 1/2 of a dram is going to be 30 grains. I know that's kind of out of there, so I'll circle it to separate it, but 1/2 a dram is 30 grains. That's another useful number to know. So if you recall that prescription that I was talking about earlier that you received in 1918, it's in Latin. It's in Latin. You understand none of it because you're an Anglophone. And it has these funky numbers on the side. It has these abbreviations that you now understand what they mean. Grains here and dram here. And it has Roman numerals next to it. Since this is written in Latin, we write our numbers in Roman numerals. So I'll show you how that works. In Arabic numerals like these, you're going to put your symbol after the number. That's the way that they're displayed. But in Roman numerals, you put the symbol beforehand. So let's start with what we have here. Aspirine 35 grana. So 35 grains of aspirin. Grains, and then XXXV. So that's 10, 20, 30, 5. 35 grains. See? Easy as pie. Then we have, what do we have? Extracti Paulinia. So guarana extract. That's also in grains, but it's going to be 23 grains. Correct? Yes, 23 grains. So it's going to be XX. So 10, 20, 21, 22, 23. Now you'll notice there's a J in there. There's a J in there. There are no J's in the Latin language. How does that work? Well, this is actually an affectation of the pharmacological system here, the apothecary system. If the terminal character in your numeral is a 1, you want to put a J there. That little flourish helps indicate that that's the terminus of the number, as well as the period that you put after it. These work for the other symbols too. So let's say we have 2 ounces. So 2 ounces. Likewise, 1 dram is going to be like this, and so on and so forth. Fractions also kind of work the same way. Let's say we have 1/2 a grain. Latin for half is semis, so our abbreviation is going to be SS. You can compound them with here. So let's say we have 1.5 drams of something or other. So dram, 1. Okay, that's technically wrong because that's not the end. So dram, we have 1 dram, but we have 1/2 a dram in addition to that. So 1 plus half, 1.5 drams. Again, that's kind of a mistake. Ignore that I wrote that. Other fractions also work the same way if you know Latin. For some context here. The Romans divided their fractions, instead of doing base 10 like we do here, they divided them base 12. So instead of 1/4 being 2.5 parts out of 10, it's 3 parts out of 12. So all your fractions are going to be displayed in abbreviation form in terms of the number 12. So let's say we have 1/4 grain. We write grain. That could be expressed in two ways. Either in the Arabic numerals, 1/4 grain, or in the Latin abbreviation way, which is these 3 dots. 1, 2, 3 parts out of 12 is 1/4. You really don't see this in any of the pharmacological texts in relative modern history. You really see these. And also a quick note, unless it's a half, you will not use those fractions in anything but grains. You will see quarter grain, but you'll never see quarter dram. You'll see half a dram, but you'll never see quarter any of these. You'll only see weird fractions in terms of grains. I hope you're keeping with me so far. I hope that's not too much plopped on you. I will finish this side off before I go to volumes by doing some compounding here. So let's say we have, well, not compounding, some compound mushing together. So let's say we have 30 grains of compound A. And then compound B, let's say we have 1 dram. Let's add these together. Well, 1 dram, we start at 1 dram. How many grains are in a dram? 60 grains in 1 dram. But since we're not working with only grains and drams, we have scruples here. How many grains are in a scruple? Okay, 20. 20 is lesser than 30, but 30 is lesser than 60. So it's somewhere in between here. Remember how I said we can do a half of any of these, but only weird fractions of these? That means that we're available, that half a dram is available. I am phrasing this extremely poorly. I really apologize. Anyway, if we add these together, we'll notice that 60 is 2 times 30. That's half a dram. So that will be 1 1/2 dram of AB. Or, oh, excuse me. It's late at night, if you couldn't tell. I am really not peak brain function right now. These two are equivalent. And let's do another one just really quickly before I go to volume and bore you guys even more. Let's say we have 2, A is this, B is this, 2 ounces of A, and we have 40 scruples of B. All right, how many scruples are in an ounce? 24 scruples in an ounce. We have 2 ounces already. 40 is larger than 24. But by how much? Let's see, 10 plus 6, 16. There are 16 more scruples, so that is 24 scruples plus 16 scruples is 1 ounce. So this is going to be 1 ounce plus 16 scruples. 1 ounce carries over, so that's going to be 3 ounces plus, what did I say, 16 scruples. So anyway, if you're used to the American, the U.S. customary system of measurement and its fractional composition, this should be a cinch for you. I apologize to all you Europeans and everybody else out there besides Liberia and Myanmar. This is just the way it works. Obviously, like I said, we stopped using this in 1971, but if you're a student of history, you think this is fun anyway. Let's get on to volumes. Volumes are kind of similar. Again, Americans will realize, oh, there's gallons, there's pints, there's quarts, there's cups, there's tablespoons, there's teaspoons. Yes, kinda. Remember, that's in the U.S. customary system. We're not in the customary system right now. We're in the apothecary system. So we have sort of different breakdowns to that. Our biggest unit that we're going to talk about today is going to be the pint. That is a capital letter O. Why it is? It's because it's Latin. I think it's kind of hard to read because it looks like a 0, but capital letter O is going to stand for pint. Pints are broken up into, not cups. Remember, we're not doing the customary system. This is the apothecary system. Ounces. Ounces are broken up into, yep, you guessed it, drams. Drams are broken up into, yes, very astute, scruples. Fun to say, scruple. And then finally into not grains this time, but minims. Yes, it's the Scorpio sign. However, we're talking in fluid here. These are units of weight. So to differentiate them, we're going to put an F in front of them to differentiate that these are fluid units. Pints and minims are always fluid, but fluid ounce, fluid dram, fluid scruple. Fluid ounce and fluid dram, when you see them spelled, they're usually one word: fluid ounce and fluid dram. But anyway, let's get into that breakdown table like last time. I'm going to try and make that as round as possible. Show you that's an O, not a 0. 1 pint is equal to 16 fluid ounces. 1 fluid ounce is equal to 8 fluid drams. I can't write here. Here we go. 8 fluid drams. 1 fluid dram is equal to, pardon the sloppy penmanship, 3 fluid scruples, and then 1 fluid scruple is equal to 20 minims. You'll see that this pattern is pretty much identical to the last one, and that's because initially, just like how 1 milliliter of water is 1 gram of mass, it sort of started that way, like 1 ounce of water weighed 1 ounce of weight. It's not exactly the same, but it's a close measurement, and that's why they follow the same. Anyway, I'll fill the rest of this out, so that's going to be 128 fluid drams. And then we have 384. Yes, 384. Fluid scruples and 24 fluid scruples. Just like weight scruples, you're never really going to see fluid scruples ever. You're going to see minims, you're going to see drams, you're going to see ounces. Pints sometimes, but not really. And then finally, you're going to see 7,680 minims. We're going to see 480, just like last time, minims. Oh. And, of course, you're going to see 60 minims, just like the grains. Now, there is another unit out here called the drop. You'll see that oftentimes abbreviated to GTT, which stands for the Latin gutta, or plural guttae, which means drop. 1 minim is equal to 1.2 drops. Some of the books that you'll see back in the day, they'll refer to minims as drops or drops as minims. That's strictly speaking incorrect. It's not entirely that different, but drops are an empirical thing. Obviously, it's how many drops. It depends on the orifice size of the dropper and the surface tension of the liquid, etc. Drops are kind of imprecise. Minims are precise. Just like the weight side, you'll see the exact same thing work on how the Roman numerals work. So 35 minims, or 2 ounces, all works the exact same way. I'll let you look at this one last time. Pause it if you need. Adding them, just like the weights, works exactly the same. And I'll get on to the next section of the video, which is kind of less brain intense. Here I have a set of Apothecary's weights from, I don't even know when, but you'll see that it's they're all in drams and scruples and grains instead of ounces. Sorry, instead of grams, excuse me. You have 4 dram, 2 dram, 1 dram, 2 scruple, half dram, which remember is 1.5 scruple, 1 scruple, half a scruple in here. We have the small ones. Quarter grain. I'm missing the half grain. We have 1 grain, 2 grain, another 2 grain, and a 5 grain. You use these on a torsion balance or a beam balance, and you can get some very, very precise measurements here. And just to prove that I'm only mildly insane, not completely insane, see how that says ounce? Remember how many drams are in an ounce? There are 8 drams in an ounce. If that says 4 drams, that means it's half an ounce. So in theory, when I put this on this balance, it should say exactly 0.5. Except it doesn't. It says 0.55, because remember, this is the Troy system, not the avoirdupois system. Just a cool little thing to show you there. If you need any form of precision, do not buy these very cheap balances. If you need to do some pharmaceutical grade precision stuff, please get a pharmaceutical balance, like a torsion balance. They're worth their money. They're very cool. Yes, they are finicky. Yes, they take skill to use, but they're very worth it. And of course, the accuracy of those has to do with your weights, and make sure they're traceable. And I also have here, for the fluid side of things, a Eastman Kodak fluid measure here from around about World War I. On this side, I don't know if you can see it, it's very light in there, but it's etched the ounce symbol and the dram symbol. There are 1, 2, 3, 4 ounces, and each dram is subdivided into, each ounce is subdivided into, that's right, 8 fluid drams. So we'll see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 drams per ounce. A pharmacist or druggist in the turn of the century would have had a very similar measure to this. Obviously, it wouldn't say Eastman Kodak on it, but that's how they would measure some larger things for decoctions or tinctures, elixirs, and other stuff. But I'll put that down before I break it. And I'll thank you for coming to this video. I'll, depending on how lazy I am, in theory, I'll be coming out with a video on my 1908 torsion balance very soon, talking about that sort of stuff, as well as maybe a video, depending on how I'm feeling, on how to write these Latin prescription stuff. Again, none of this is medical advice. I am not a doctor nor a pharmacist. Do not take this as medical advice. This is purely for history. But anyway, whether you're a history nut or a medical student or whatever you are, I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope this clarified at least a little bit of the apothecary system. It makes sense to nobody, so just kind of join the struggle. I thank you for watching, and I'll see you again next time.